From midday a darkness fell over the whole land, which lasted until 3 p.m. And about 3, Jesus cried aloud, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Hearing this, some of the bystanders said, "He is calling Elijah." One of them ran at once and fetched a sponge, which he soaked in sour wine and held to his lips on the end of a stick. But the others said, "Let us see if Elijah will come to save him." Jesus again cried aloud and breathed his last. At that moment, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom. The earth shook, rocks split, and graves opened. Many of God's saints were raised from the sleep, and coming out of their graves after his resurrection entered the holy city, where many saw them. And when the centurion and his men, who were keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and all that had happened, they were filling with awe and said, "This must have been a son of God."
meditation for Good Friday. When we hear the words of the Passion that Thomas has read for us, we consider in particular these words, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And I suspect all of us in our worst moments have had thoughts like that. Whether it's been the despair that centered around the pandemic over the past year, or in our personal lives when tragedy comes, relationships fail, or death comes and takes loved ones from us. But I wonder when we think about these words, if we're necessarily concluding about the loneliness of our situation, when we have to deal with our thoughts, our fears, our vulnerabilities, and our insecurities. And then we see Jesus on the cross, experiencing the same. We understand that our God is not remote from us, but our God is there in the imperfections of life, in the suffering that all of us have. Jesus himself understands in his full humanity what it is to have suffered, and he recognizes, even in his moment of death, that sense of despair, the abandonment by God. But we know this will not be the whole story. And in this moving account of the Passion, in this narrative gospel, we see a description that ends with the realization of those who witness the death of Jesus that much more happens. The soldiers themselves, operatives in this death experience, recognize that God is somehow to be found. And here we have the first glimpse of our resurrection hope. For surely where God is in despair, then something better happens. That love can conquer hate, that hope and courage can be found where people were feeling lost, that in the loneliness of the moment, then something mighty happens. God can speak a message that allows us to discover that in night there is always the hope of day. In despair, there is always the hope of something which will transform and something that completes us. But make no mistake, it's in the Passion, in the suffering, and in the death that we have that realization. Somehow it seems, in the most dreaded moments of our lives, that we can be completed and that we can be made use of, and God will make himself clear. This then is the message of Good Friday. This is our hope. As we focus on ourselves and on the death of Jesus, in our loneliness and aloneness, we can contemplate the possibility that we shall see Easter, and all will be renewed, and everything will be made well. Amen.